So hearing loss, tinnitus, problems with your ears seem to be such a taboo subject among audio engineers, but I really think it's time that we talk about this. Now, the reason why I think this is such a taboo subject, it's almost as if we're kind of ashamed to admit to other audio engineers especially, right? When we have some hearing issues like tinnitus or just loss of high frequency information and stuff like that, it's like if we admit that, then it's gonna destroy our credibility and it's gonna destroy our reputation. And ultimately, it's going to destroy our career, right? I guess it's just a big source of insecurity. But is that really always necessary? Now, I'm preaching to myself here for the most part, because I do have tinnitus and I do have a pretty significant drop off in my hearing, pretty much around 12 or maybe 13 kilohertz. Like above that, I can't really hear anything at all. Which after Googling that, it turns out I have the hearing of a 50-year-old, while I'm actually 34, so I'm pretty much 15 years, a good 15 years ahead of the curve when it comes to my hearing age. And that is most likely due to, working construction for 15 years, just constantly being surrounded by heavy machinery, people working loud jobs, playing in bands, not always wearing earplugs, stuff like that. And it's safe to say that my hearing has suffered a lot from that. And I remember a couple years ago when I was really trying to get my foot in the door as a producer, trying to get better at mixing and all that stuff, I was getting very worried about this. And I actually talked to Jordan about this and I was like, dude, I think my ears are screwed. I just cannot hear that nice 16K top-end shiny stuff at all. And I'm just worried, that I won't be able to become a professional audio engineer because of that problem. Like at some point, somebody's gonna call me out on it, and it's just gonna cause troubles down the road. And I'm worried, And Jordan just said like, yeah, dude. I got my ears measured at some point as well, and it turns out I have a pretty big dip around 4K on one of my ears, right? And that made me realize like, hey, maybe I'm not alone in this. Maybe I'm not the only audio engineer struggling with hearing issues, right? And when we talked about that, what really stood out to me was just how casual Jordan was about all of this, right? He was like, yeah, dude, it really doesn't bother me that much, right? It's like, can you imagine these older professionals like a Dave Pensado or Bob Clearmountain or whatever? Do you think those guys still have perfect hearing at their age and after being active in the music industry for like 50 years? Most likely not, right? And they're still pumping out professional mixes all the time. And it's not because they have perfect hearing, whatever that means in the first place, right? But it's because they know what to listen for when they're mixing. And that was a turning point for me, okay? That was like, I made peace with my tinnitus and with my 50-year-old hearing, right? And I realized that no human being is the same anyway. Like, what does perfect hearing mean anyway? Right? We all have different hearing like frequency curves in the first place, and we all have different ear shapes and ear sizes, and they all affect the sound in a very unique way to all of us, right? So that means that nobody really perceives sound the exact same way. So what does perfect hearing mean? And I feel like too many people are just holding themselves back unnecessarily, right? Because they feel like circumstances aren't perfect, whether that's with their own ears or like the frequency response in the room or anything related to their gear or whatever. So many reasons why people hold themselves back. But what if we just stop worrying about all of that stuff? And what if we just focus on making music? I know it's a silly thought, right? But what if we actually focus on knowing what to listen for while we mix, right? What if we focus on creating excitement and energy and movement in our mixes? Do you really need like perfect hearing for that, or do you just need to know what you're doing? Now, I know there's different types of hearing loss and tinnitus, and I know that some of them can be really severe, right? I'm not trying to discredit any of that at all. Like, there's always going to be exceptions, right? There will be people whose tinnitus is so bad that it will hinder them from being able to mix for very long or in some other sort of way, and I hear that, right? But that doesn't and shouldn't mean that you don't even work on the things that are within your control, like learning to recognize what kind of EQ and compression your source sound really needs, and training your ears to recognize problems in a mix and learning how to solve them effectively, or learning how to create enough separation in the mid-range so that you create clarity, but you don't have things sounding completely disconnected from each other. All of that stuff, right? And like I said earlier as well, focusing on energy and excitement and movement in your mixes. right? Those are the things that are gonna make up 95% of your mix, if not more. And that 16K, you know, little top end shine that you can't hear, well, there isn't really any musical information in that area anyways, right? You can perfectly enjoy songs without hearing 16K. And I wanna show you that in practice as well. Okay, so now we're in Pro Tools and I wanna play you the chorus here of a mix that I've worked on a couple of months ago. And let's just see what it sounds like. Here we go. Okay, so just a nice little acoustic rock song, very catchy chorus and everything. Here's the kicker and the main point that I want to make in this video. While we were listening to that just now, I already had this low pass filter going on at 11K, cutting off everything above that, and it was going on the entire time. I'm willing to bet that most of the viewers, most of the people watching this video did not really notice that before I pointed it out to them, right? And that is the main point that I want them to make here. Like, music lives and breathes in the mid-range, and if that's all that we're hearing, we can easily enjoy a song and enjoy the catchy melodies and enjoy the lyrics and the message that the musicians are trying to tell us and everything. And if the mid-range is all that we're getting, no problem. On the flip side though, if the top end is all that we're hearing, so anything above 11K here, let's listen to that for a quick second. Apologies if that was harsh, but notice just how it's impossible to even recognize the song anymore, right? Now, if you played my favorite song that I've heard 1,000 times before already, but you only give me the 10K and above frequencies, then I'm willing to bet that I won't even be able to recognize the song, let alone really enjoy it, right? And so that's the main point here. Music lives and breathes in the mid-range, and the mid-range is all that a listener needs to really experience and enjoy the song. And anything above 10K, yes, when we take it out, it sounds a little less exciting and a little less energetic, right? But I guess you can call it just a little like bonus sparkle, which hardly affects how we perceive the song in the first place. And we just proved that by doing this little experiment. So, all right, last but not least, here's some quick tips for you if you suffer from hearing loss and tinnitus and you still want to mix for longer amounts of times and you want to prevent those things from getting worse. And the first tip is obviously monitor at low volumes. All right, this seems so obvious, but I still hear and read about people having their monitors cranked up super loud when they're mixing, and it's not really helping them multiple ways, right? A good ballpark to aim for is to try to keep it below kind of 70 dB-ish. You can probably download this decibel meter app on your phone, and I actually tried that, and my mixing volume seems to be between 65 and 68 dB. Now, ideally, you shouldn't really have to raise your voice while you're mixing and you want to have a conversation with somebody next to you. And mixing at low volumes like that is going to help you in two different ways. The first one, obviously, it's going to take much longer before you experience any ear fatigue whatsoever. And the second one, it's actually going to force you to work just a little bit harder at your mix. And that's because it's a little bit harder to make something sound exciting and moving at low volumes, right? But if you can do that, then it's going to sound absolutely amazing when you crank it up, and it's really going to set a vibe there, right? And the other way around, not so much. All right, tip number 2, take regular breaks when you're mixing, all right? And you read and see this all the time online, but how do you actually know that it's time for a break? And it's when you notice yourself cranking up your monitors just so you can kind of zoom in on the sound a little bit more, that is a great sign that you need a little break, right? And so instead of pushing through and kind of forcing yourself to keep mixing, even a 5-minute break is more than enough time to, you know, get some focus back, find some objectivity back. So don't force yourself, don't push through, just take a little break, grab some coffee, and you'll be back mixing within 5 minutes. All right, the last one is earplugs always, and I mean always. This has just been one of those non-negotiable things for me when I go to concerts or to a bar or really any loud place. I got these $100 like custom-made earplugs that fit my ears perfectly, and I consider that little $100 investment to be far more valuable than any piece of gear that I've ever bought, and I recommend it to every single one of you. It's like looking cool in a bar without earplugs. Yes, it's cool. It's very cool. We get you, right? But going home with no beeping or no ringing in your ears is much cooler, right? So please bring earplugs everywhere you go, simply because you don't want any hearing problems that you might already have to keep getting worse over time. All right, so hopefully this message has released some of the stress for you around, your hearing situation, knowing that you're not the only one and professionals are dealing with this stuff all the time as well. So hopefully you can make some more peace with your hearing situation, knowing that skills and knowing what to do is always going to be far more important than having perfect hearing, because we don't even know what that means anyway, right? And especially knowing that the mid-range is truly everything when it comes to mixing and when it comes to listening to songs and enjoying songs. It is all about that mid-range, right? So if you want to hear more about what makes that mid-range so important in your mixes, check out this video right here, and I will see you in the next one.